are the Native Americans. Native Americans are the indigenous peoples of the American continent, whose history stretches back thousands of years. According to archaeological evidence, the first people arrived here from Asia about 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge over the Bering Strait. These ancient migrants gradually spread throughout the Americas, from the cold tundras of the Arctic to the hot tropics of the Amazon. Unique peoples and tribes formed in every corner of the continent. The Iroquois and Algonquins in the northeast, the Lakota and Dakota on the Great Plains, the Pueblo and Hopi in the southwestern deserts, the Incas in the mountainous regions of South America, the Aztecs in Central America, and many others. Each nation had its own culture, language, beliefs, and traditions. Native Americans were not wild nomads as often portrayed. They built cities and fortresses, practiced agriculture growing corn, beans, and squash, and had knowledge of astronomy and medicine. They believed in spirits of nature and ancestors and created complex mythological systems and ceremonies. The significance of names in Native culture. For Native Americans, a name is not just a word given at birth. It is a deeply symbolic part of identity, reflecting character, destiny, and connection to the tribe. Names were often given after special events, the birth of a child, a significant deed, a vision, or a spiritual revelation. For example, names could sound like "He who stands alone," "Talking with water," or "One who fears the bear not." These names did not just describe qualities, but connected a person with the spiritual world, offering protection and pride. Throughout life, a name could change. After war, reaching adulthood, or spiritual experience. Losing a name meant losing status in society, becoming outcast or forgotten. Shamans and elders played important roles in assigning names and in rituals connected to them. This emphasized the spiritual and social dimension of a name. Where and how Native Americans lived. Native Americans adapted to a vast range of natural conditions. Their dwellings reflected the climate and lifestyle. The Iroquois and Algonquins, living in the forests of the Northeast, built longhouses. These wooden and bark-covered homes could house an entire extended family or clan, sometimes up to 30 people. Longhouses were the center of social and spiritual life, where meetings and celebrations took place. On the Great Plains, where the Lakota and Dakota lived, mobile teepees were preferred, conical tents made from frames covered with bison hides. They could be quickly assembled and moved, essential for the nomadic hunting lifestyle. In the Southwest, the Pueblo and Hopi built adobe multi-story homes, sometimes connected into entire villages. Stone, clay, and wood created durable houses that could last centuries. Such villages housed large communities working, resting, and performing ceremonies together. The Inuit of the North built igloos, dome-shaped snow houses, and hunting huts. Their dwellings provided insulation from the harsh cold and were carefully designed for warmth. For Native Americans, a home was more than shelter. It was the center of life, a spiritual space, a fortress, and a symbol of connection with ancestors and nature. Social organization. Native societies were complex and diverse, but always built on mutual respect and responsibility. Councils of elders, experienced and wise individuals who made important decisions, gave advice, and upheld traditions. Chiefs, not dictators, but representatives chosen for their qualities, wisdom, and courage. Chiefs could not decide alone. Their opinion was considered along with the council. Shamans, spiritual leaders and healers, intermediaries between the living and the spirit world. They performed rituals, treated illnesses, and helped maintain the tribe's spiritual health. Women played significant roles. For example, among the Iroquois, women selected chiefs and could remove them from power if they felt he was failing. Power and respect were earned through bravery, wisdom, and service to the tribe. Wealth as power was foreign. Most tribes lived communally, sharing resources, family, children, and upbringing. Family for Native Americans was a large network of relatives: parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Children were raised through example and participation in community life. From an early age, children watched adults. Boys learned from hunters and warriors, mastering crafts and combat skills. Girls learned from mothers, healers, and tradition keepers. Adolescents faced serious initiation rites, tests, fasting, solitude in the wilderness, to establish spiritual connections and prove maturity. Marriage was based on mutual agreement. Divorce was not shameful. The clan was sacred, but the tribe was above all. Personal interests yielded to the community. Columbus and the beginning of the end. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached the Caribbean islands, opening the Americas to Europeans. For the indigenous peoples, this marked a tragedy. At first, there was an exchange of gifts and friendship, but very quickly, Spanish conquistadors arrived with violence, slavery, and destruction. The Taíno people were almost wiped out within 50 years from violence, disease, and enslavement. The Aztec and Inca, mighty civilizations, were crushed. The Spanish forcibly converted Native Americans to Christianity. Those who resisted faced torture and death. Columbus personally ordered the use of slaves and punishments for failures. In a letter, he wrote that gold could be easily obtained with slaves. Friar Bartolomé de las Casas described atrocities, executions for minor offenses, and torture for amusement. The greatest blow came from diseases: smallpox, measles, typhus, which killed up to 90% of the native population. Without immunity, these diseases were deadlier than any weapon. America against the natives. After the founding of the United States, the struggle continued. Americans expanded westward, seizing lands and breaking treaties with native tribes. Thousands were forcibly relocated to reservations, poor, infertile lands where traditional lifestyles were impossible to maintain. In the 1830s, the tragic Trail of Tears forced the Cherokee and other tribes to move westward, during which many died. Native children were sent to boarding schools, where they were forbidden to speak their languages, had their hair cut, and were forced to adopt Christianity, aiming to erase their culture and identity. Conflict and wars. The U.S. Army waged brutal wars against tribes such as the Apache, Cheyenne, and Sioux. The Sand Creek Massacre, 1864, mass killing of women and children. The Battle of Little Bighorn, 1876, one of the few native victories, led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. The Wounded Knee Massacre, 1890, the killing of more than 250 Lakota, including women and children, marking the end of organized resistance. Treaties were broken, lands taken when valuable resources were found. In the 20th century, children were removed from families and forcibly assimilated. It was a fight not just for land, but for the survival of spirit and culture. Alcohol as a tool of destruction. Before Europeans arrived, alcohol was practically absent in native cultures, and their bodies could not process it. European traders exploited this, offering cheap alcohol in exchange for furs and food, or as bribes and control tools. Firewater caused social degradation, surges in violence, broken families, and loss of traditions. Some chiefs tried to ban alcohol, but smuggling continued. Chief Tecumseh said, "The white man gives us a drink that burns our souls." Alcohol became a quiet but powerful force of destruction. Today, and memory despite genocide and cultural destruction, many tribes still live and fight for their rights. Navajo, Cherokee, Lakota, Hopi, and others preserve languages, rituals, and crafts, engage in political struggles, and restore their heritage. Native American stories are not just pages of history, but a living voice of pain, survival, and resistance, reminding us of the importance of respecting the culture and rights of Indigenous peoples. If you found this interesting, leave a like. It helps the video reach more people and motivates me to create even more stories like this. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next journey into the past. It's only going to get darker, grittier, and more real. Thanks for watching.